And all of you were jurors in
Yes.
then the Maxwell
Yes.
Anderson case. So I'll start with you. I mean, just your experience being part of the jury. What were some of your takeaways? What was that experience like for you?
Heavier than I thought it would be. To be perfectly honest, you always think you see a lot of stuff on TV, and all right, this might not be any different, but it's very different. The evidence, seeing it presented, the family being that close to you, feeling what they're going through. This was it hit me a lot harder than I honestly thought it would. It really did.
In
But
an emotional way, or
yes, very much so. Yeah.
do you have kids yourself? Or
I have a 19-year-old son, so yeah, I would be just as much of a wreck as Sade's mother was if I had to go through this. So yeah.
and Marilyn, what about for you? I mean, just being part of this jury. I mean, was it your first time being on a jury, or
It was absolutely my first time being on a jury, and I didn't know what to expect. But it was definitely harder than I expected. I didn't think it would be so tough emotionally, exhausted mentally by the end of the day, disgusted, and just saddened. And what made it so much more difficult was to have visualization of family members, um, and just knowing, you know, what were hearing, and not being able to talk about it with family or friends was difficult. So
yeah, how challenging was that? Not to, you go home at the end of the night and then you can't talk about it. You can't go on social media. Talk to me about that challenge.
it was extremely challenging, and I found myself very short fused and having to kind of call myself out on my, don't don't ask me that silly question, or where normally I'd be much more relaxed and lighthearted and in a good mood. I found myself just wanting to be alone, and a person that doesn't like to be alone. It was very eye opening. So
And what about for you? Just being on the jury, what was the experience like for you, and what were your takeaways?
Yeah, so this was the first time ever even being called for jury duty, let alone actually being on a jury. Um, I mean, my heart's very heavy. It's very, very emotionally draining. And it was very difficult not to be able to talk to anyone, to bounce ideas off of them, think through your thoughts. I ended up taking a lot of walks just to like collect my thoughts and process things and go through them even out loud. I would talk to myself out loud on these walks to try and like think through all the information that you're given, because you're just barraged with information for hours a day. It's tough.
Sounds like challenging even on your mental health to go through
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Cool. And what about for you? I mean, just to go through it.
Being a part of the jury is very isolating. The fact that you can't talk to anyone or even process your emotions, especially on, those family members that you typically lean on to process your emotions throughout the day, just very mentally draining. I'm just drained. I feel like I need a vacation from this, and just very eye opening, I guess, about everything that, like, throughout the city, like all the camera footage and all of that. Like, obviously we're being watched 24/7, which was oddly comforting, but just emotionally draining. I'm just at this point brain dead. I see a lot, especially as a social worker in the city for the last several years, and I have no words at this point. It's just emotionally draining.
You know,
It,
okay.
I was just gonna say it was a very rewarding experience overall, and at the end of it, we all felt like we had really been a part of, you know, the system, right? Like if you're not a part of it, you never know what's gonna happen, and it was very rewarding at the end of it to know what the system is like.
Would it be fair to say, like at this point, now that it's over, that there's maybe a sense of relief that you get to now move forward, or what are you feeling on your heart now that that verdict has been read publicly?
Lighter, definitely lighter. Just there is a sense of relief. At least as much we've done as much as we can for the family. At least they know where he's going to be riding for the rest of the time. For the time being, but for me personally, it's like you saw some things you never planned on seeing. This wasn't TV. It wasn't a movie, and I just want to be able to get some stuff out of my head. And honestly, I mean, I'm at that age. I have issues sleeping already, but I'm like, I had this trial just kept popping up at the weirdest time in my head. And I just could not think about it. So I'm looking forward to getting pushing that in the back. You know, that's all I can really say about that. Yeah.
So seeing some of that evidence and some of those photos and videos a bit
Especially the
traumatizing.
photos, especially the photos. Those last days when they showed that photos and just thinking through it through my personal lens of male activity and certain things. But when you see that, I'm like, no, that's something different. I've never seen anything like that from any of my friends, male associates, anything like evil. That's the only way I can describe it. Certain things when you see it, you're like that. When they say you'll know it when you see it, and you be like, yep, yeah, that's evil. That's all. That's the only word I can have to describe that. Yeah.
It stands out that you said like this is not a movie. This was real life.
It didn't look like special effects. It was, like I said, when you just saw those pictures that was like found on his phone, that was just more nails in the coffin. Like there was already enough evidence that had been presented. I was pretty sure where I was going to stand. I was waiting for the defense to perhaps give me a reason to be like, oh, okay, maybe not. That didn't come, but I'm like, there was no way they're gonna. What are you gonna say that's gonna change how I feel about having seen those photos? And there was nothing presented that was gonna change that.
Can you talk to me just about, the deliberation? Was everyone on the same page? What was that process like? Did it surprise you how fast it went? Did it take longer than you thought?
It definitely surprised me how fast it went, but there was a lot of discussion. It was not an easy thing by no means. There was multiple people that we, had to discuss things through, but ultimately, Sade, the evidence, and our common sense brought us to a conclusion. And like you said, it was rewarding in that sense. And I feel like we did make the right decision. There's no question in our minds now, for sure. And at that moment that we made the right decision, I do think it's hard to explain unless you are in this, unless you've done this before, to really, explain how hard it was, and how much each and every one of us took it seriously. We really took it seriously, and were focused, and again kept Sade at the forefront of our deliberation and the reason why we were there. And so yeah, I feel that it was challenging. It did move faster than I had expected, but ultimately we all saw the same evidence, and we all were able to agree that he was guilty on all four counts. So
You talk about taking it seriously. What do you want the public to know about just how you took on this responsibility as a juror? What would you say to people who might see this later today?
Oh, I took it extremely seriously. I think it was very difficult to sit through all of the videos, the images, the descriptions. And I just kept thinking, do this for Sade. Whether or not we find it guilty, not guilty, what have you, this is who we're here for. This is why we're doing it. And I think that kept me going.
What about for you?
Throughout this process, obviously it was a lengthy court hearing. We had a lot of testimony, a lot of video to review and see, but at the end of the day, as the jury came together, it was really just more of a collaboration of everyone's thoughts kind of coming together. And really the only hesitation we had were for the first count of whether it would be intentional or unintentional. And it was a pretty quick conversation of just saying the facts came together and we all quickly agreed. So it was nice to work with such a lovely group of jury members. We really got lucky and everyone took the case really seriously. So
That was part of it too, was although maybe the actual discussion didn't take very long, every single one of us was bringing this home in our minds every single night, thinking about it for hours on end. So that had a lot to do with it.
Anything that you'd want to say maybe now that he's guilty to Sade's family or to the community who were out, searching for her and things like that?
You know what I would say to the community, specifically my community, when you have the opportunity to do jury duty, serve that. I mean, I'm like everybody else. When I first got the letter, I actually deferred it the very first time, and that was last year. Then when I came in, they gave us a questionnaire to start filtering down the process. I'm like, oh, not this trial. I don't want to get on this. I don't want my life disrupted. I mean, I had honestly came down to jury duty hoping that if I did get selected for a trial, I would be there to be the guy to keep somebody from getting railroaded. That was honestly my impression. The lens I was looking at that through. But, I mean, once you get in there, and it was just a chance. I mean, one, I was honestly very impressed with the speed, and I felt the seriousness that MPD, Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department, actually responded to things, the actions that they took, and finding out that a young black woman was missing. Her car had been set on fire, and I didn't hear any excuses being made. Well, what if this? What if it? No, she's missing. What's going on? Let's get it right into that. It gave me renewed hope in the system, and I'm happy to have did my part of it.
Anything else anyone wants to say that's on your heart or on your mind?
I really appreciate all the witnesses and the investigators.
Yeah.
Every person had their role. That was, whether it was small, it was just as important to bring the case together. So that was impressive, really, for me. Like I was floored with how incredibly intelligent and specialized some of the witnesses were, and happy that they're around.
Very thorough, and that
Yeah.
I would assume helped you all
Yeah.
make a decision
Yeah.
that you felt
Yep,
comfortable with.
credible. You believed what they were saying. And the evidence that they brought forth was
Yeah.
so.
Okay.